Sucks.
To start off, sort of my first question is, you have
Oh,
a
we jumping in. Let's get it.
yeah,
Oh
let's
shit.
go.
Oh boy,
Listen,
let's
I've been
go.
preparing. I'm excited. I love the show, by the way. I watched it in a day. It was so good. Y'all did phenomenal. But my first question is, you have a background in theater. How do you feel like that prepared you for your career working in film and television?
I like that question. I think let me turn you up a little bit. My background in theater has been, I mean, I went to school for acting, BFA in acting. Um, and I realized I didn't really know very much. Then I went to New York, and I think the theater training in New York, working with Labyrinth Theater Company, Manhattan Theater Club, Roundabout Theater Club, doing fences on Broadway, all that stuff just solidifies that my perspective as an artist, and it helped me to decide what I wanted my career to be. So that automatically influences what I do from any point forward. I've luckily been a part of mostly things that have a sense of social change or awareness about it, and that has been an objective of my career. So I think that all developed when I was a horrible, horrible actor in New York.
So speaking on to the topic of social change and awareness, last time viewers saw you was in When They See Us playing Yusef
Yes.
Salam,
Yes,
and that
yes.
feels really relevant to the current climate of things. Do you have any reflections to sort of share with people?
Um, well, can you aim me a little bit more? That was a really broad swing.
Yeah, of course. So obviously there's a lot of sort of tension in this country at this current
It's
moment.
a racist
Um,
country, yeah.
yeah, and sort of where a lot of people are fed up and angry about the current situation, but just everything as a whole. Do you have any thoughts about sort of what's going on and and sort of what you can share with people sort of looking for a voice?
My thoughts, I'll speak from the When They See Us. I think the reason that that is important, I think the reason that Perry Mason, which you've seen and people may not realize until the middle end of the show, why that's important is because the more we can put honest brown voices on the screen, the better. Like
Right.
When They See Us was isn't a new problem, and that wasn't the beginning of the problem. My Perry Mason wasn't new or the beginning of the problem. It started, you know, when the nation, was stepping on Native Americans' necks, dragging Black people over here and enslaving them. And the more in my job, what my job is to tell those stories honestly so that we can see the humanity behind it as opposed to the uh, system. I think when we tell those stories as a system, they can easily get put away. But when we do like a 12 years a slave and we're dealing with one individual primarily, when we're doing, when you get to actually for 4.5 hours or more, look at the the exonerated five. I had to find the name. The exonerated five. It makes them humans, which it's hard to deny human pain, like what's happening in the street right now. And I think the reason it's being so, like, it feels so effective and new is because there is a limit to what people can take. And I think um, When They See Us was an example. And the fact that people were able to watch it,
Yeah.
which I encourage them to do with Perry Mason, there are going to be parts in Perry Mason that are tough and were tough to do, and they completely revolve around the honest racial transactions in America. And the more we can just acknowledge that truth in entertainment then the more we can do it in real life, I
Right.
think.
I feel like from watching the show, I felt like Officer Drake was a really important role, especially having a Black police officer. So with that, do you feel like being able to play Officer Drake, but also being able to play someone like Yusef, sort of helps influence your own perspective on these situations?
Well, my career didn't start with those two things. Like, I've played Rwandan generals who raped people on stages, like in Pulitzer Prize winning plays that, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and that's not a brag. That is my perspective was shifted ages ago. Like,
Yeah.
I'm a Black man in America who had the Klan marching across his yard in Asheville, North Carolina growing up, and I am not old. So it's not like neither one of those shifted my perspective. They just supported my objective and what I'm doing, which is with my career so far. Who knows what tomorrow holds, but so far I feel like I've been able to collaborate with people who are actively seeking to either inform or create change around race relations or the underserved. Even with our own film that my wife and I made, that was a point of that. And so, in front of and behind the camera, we put primarily people of color, uh, queer people. Like I think the world is tired of the injustice, and so it's just supported. Yusuf, Paul Drake, they all support what is my objective.
Right. So going into the role of Paul Drake, how did you prepare for this role? I mean, Perry Mason is such an iconic show, and the book series. Did you watch the original show or read any of the books with the preparation process?
I read some of the book, one of the books, and you know what? It's cool. I grew up watching the show, and I've said this before, but I've watched the show. I grew up watching the show, reruns of the show, obviously, and maybe not obviously. I might look old. I grew up watching reruns of the show, and it was a good show that didn't matter to me because I wasn't represented on the show. Like I was like, oh, that's entertainment, cool, but like it didn't matter. It didn't connect, and I'm gonna forget your question because that's what I do. So I'm gonna just keep rambling for a second,
It's all good.
and and so I think what oh, I see. On my preparation. My preparation for the show was being a black person in America and having cousins in jail and having cops in my family and reading. There's this book by Mr. Kimbrough. He was one of the first LA. I'm gonna misspeak. I apologize. He was a leader in the police station and one of the first. And this predated even, which blew my mind, like this predated our show, which is 1930s, and he was like a leader in the force, in the police force, LAPD specifically. And that, just educating myself on one, that we are currently 8.9% of Los Angeles population, which melts my brain. And that even then, back then, we were even less of the population, yet had such an impact on the industry, had an impact on the financial gain of the city, and had an impact on getting clubbed by police officers and being targeted. And so my preparation is reading the current news and knowing my history, I think.
Which is
Unfortunately, I mean, it's crappy. It's not the
yeah,
that's like not the most like yay, this is awesome answer, but it's the truth, and it's
yeah,
okay. Like it's just it's what it is. It
right.
doesn't mean I say it's okay. Forgive me for that language. It's not okay that this is a racist world, but it is a racist world, and I want to honestly be able to tell that story without anger, because I want people to be able to see it and get into it, and then they can get angry
Right.
and they can do something.
And so, with taking on the role of Paul Drake, how do you feel like the Paul Drake within the HBO series versus the original differs?
Well, the original series, uh, all due respect, was just a bunch of white men talking,
Right.
and I think the Downies and HBO and Rollin and Ron made it a point to tell the truth about what LA was while still honoring a story that was created before. You
Right.
know, like I don't really care whatever limitations the original writer was working with. I don't care. It doesn't matter. They weren't inclusive. So that's all I care about. And this narrative is very much like a racially diverse city, which I know I've seen a lot of classic movies. And it's a big deal when a black person comes on the screen for me. And in this, it becomes not a big deal in a period piece, which is why this piece is important, why it's exciting, and it's good TV. Just like you said before we started, you've watched it. It's a great show, and I'm not saying it just because I'm on it. My wife and I, we watched it, and we were like, "Oh man, this is a good show, man! Like, let's keep watching this. This feels like a decent representation. This feels like they're engaging and not avoiding. They took Paul Drake home, which I mean, I imagine you watch TV, and we've seen a lot of television where you have your character of color, but they don't have life, they don't have a family, they don't
Right.
have they're not real. They're just a prop for other people's growth. Whereas in this piece, they're making it with Della, Paul, and Perry. It's this, tripod where each person is, you get to see their real journey. And I think that's what makes this important and relevant to today, and not just entertainment, but education
Right.
and entertainment. And
So what was it like working with such, I mean, it's just an amazing group of actors overall, but you have such iconic actors like John Lithgow, Matthew Rhys. What was it like being a part of this group of actors?
I like working with people who are good at their job.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it's like. I mean, it's like it's like working on Fences on Broadway with Viola Davis and Denzel Washington. Awesome. When you work with people who are the best at what they do, like almost inarguably the best at what they do, it can only cement either that I'm good or bad at this, and
Yeah.
I think I'm good at it.
Yeah.
Just because I get to play with these people and learn from these people, and they get to learn from me. I know. I mean, it's the question almost irks me, just because like ask them what it's like to work with me. Not, I mean, like that's a bit of an ego flare, but it's also like we've all been working really hard for a really long time, and some people have more light than other people shown on them in particular moments, and that's media. That's great PR. Yet I've been doing this for a while, for a long, long time, and so working with those people throughout my whole career, not just this show, has been awesome. I mean, look at John Lithgow. He's a monster. He's a monster. Like
Yeah.
he's incredibly talented. Matthew is one of the best number ones on a show I've ever worked with. He keeps it, man, what is it? It's like he keeps it light. He keeps people happy. There was never him and Tim Van Patten in particular. There was never any tension, almost no urgency, which is weird on TV to not be rushing. They're very much it was, and it starts from the top, so which means it starts from HBO. It starts from the Downies. They want the thing to be good, and they want it to be honest, and they want it to be real. And they hired. I mean, and you can go beyond John Lithgow, and you can go beyond the names that people are familiar with, the names that will get repeated over and over and over again, just, because that's the way the world works. But like, just keep going down the list of people in this show, and you'll see superstars. Like, you'll see amazing, talented people, myself included, that you maybe don't realize you know them. But these are people who everything you see, you go, "Oh, I'm safe. They're incredible. I don't have to worry about their skill set." Like, and so being a part of and an imperative part of narratives where they do fully invest in every single character is a dream. It's wonderful. That was a really long way to get to. It's wonderful, but I think it was an important thing to say.
Yeah, definitely, and appreciated. So the show takes place in 1932,
Yes, ma'am.
which is sort of the last leg of the Great Depression, but decades before the Civil Rights Movement. Do you
Yes.
feel like there is something that the audience can gain from watching the show and the variety of messages that sort of appear throughout the show?
I think the audience will gain, and I spoke to this previously just a bit. They'll gain an actual, man. I'll tell you what. I took history class growing up in school. Now I'm from North Carolina. Our education system, unfortunately, was not the best where I grew up. My wife and we're both from North Carolina, and we talk about it all the time. We're like, man, we were not well educated. Like, we should be dummies. We should just be walking around dumb, just like not knowing anything. Because my history was strictly, and I mean through college, was white American history. Period. Period. That's what it was. And so it's nice to be a part of a show and part of a career and part of a time in Hollywood when we are telling truths of history. You know what I mean? So, like, I forgot your question, and I know, and so I'm going to ask you to repeat it.
The show takes place in 1932, which is the
Yep.
end of the Great Depression, but also
Yep.
decades before the Civil Rights Movement.
Yep.
What do you feel like the audience can gain from
Gotcha.
watching the show? There are a variety of messages, and I felt dialogues that could happen after watching each episode.
Yes, I think you'll gain a lot in regard to everything: the socioeconomic situation, the racial situation, the misogyny that takes place. I mean, like, a lot of it is still relevant, and it's also fun to watch it at the 1930s distance. It's still relevant, obviously, right now, as protests are going on outside of both of our windows. So
Right.
it's still relevant. Yet it's really, I think, nice to see it on screen, on HBO, in taken care of in the way that you mentioned earlier, with all this great, well, I mentioned earlier, with this great cast, this great company. And I think the audience will every episode take away something. I can't tell you what, it's not my job.
Right.
I hope they take away, you know, that we existed, all of us, Asians, Latinx, Black people, queer people, white people, oppressed, wealthy, all existed all the time. And I hope people can see the delicate and honest nature with which the creators and myself and the crew have invested in making this honest for the, I keep saying the word honest, but it's so important to me because it doesn't pull us out. When we watch the show, we don't get pulled out because nothing crazy happens that doesn't seem real. Some awful things happen, but we go, yeah, that happens. You know what I mean? And I think it's the more we can see that on TV, the more we can see that on quality TV. And that's, yeah, I mean that. The better, because it's the more our brains open up, the more we can relate to other people, the more we can have an emotional connection with someone who is different with us. And so I think HBO is doing that with this show. I'm not sure I answered that question though, to tell you the truth.
It's a great answer. And sort of my next kind of question would be, you talk a lot about creating honest art, which is super important and valuable. What advice would you give to young people interested in creating honest work for viewers?
Oh man, just to keep asking themselves what the advice I give every creator is to find their authentic voice and be fearless in expressing it, and surround yourself with people who love and support you. Anybody who says you're not enough, anybody who says that's too dangerous or that's too faux pas, if you should just get rid of them, cut them off. I don't care if it's your mom and dad. I really mean that. I mean, once you're of age, obviously. Don't run away from home, kids. But so responsible for each of our individual journeys artistically and just on this earth, and in this pursuit of some sort of optimal happiness while still serving and helping other people. Wouldn't it be awesome if we get to express ourselves fearlessly and creatively all the time? And that's what I encourage people to do, is grab a camera, grab a pen, grab a paper, and find who you are and tell the world without ego.
How do you sort of do it without ego? That would be my final question.
I don't know the answer to that question. That's an individual journey, isn't it? Like the way I do it without ego is I've luckily been a part of a journey that I neither, it doesn't matter what you think about me. No offense to you, but like, it doesn't matter what you think, but it also doesn't matter what I think. Like, it matters that we are like, that I love my wife and I can take care of my wife, and that I can contribute to helping people transcend their pain and their struggle and their traumas, and whatever that means. I mean, like, my mother has a fear of talking on the phone. If I can help her fix that, then I'm doing something useful. It doesn't have to be huge. It doesn't have to be, it doesn't matter who sees it. It doesn't need to be witnessed. It just needs to be done day to day, every single day from the second. I try to. Let me speak to myself. Nobody needs to do anything. Let me take it back. This is what I need to do. I need to wake up every day and contribute to helping people be better, myself included, humbly, and knowing that I'm doing my best and I don't know anything. That's how I do it. And other people do it in ways that are probably, more fun than mine. But I like to surround myself with people who are not impressed with me. I like to surround myself with people who make fun of me, and people who are way, like, so much smarter than me that it's almost upsetting. And I constantly challenge my point of view and my perspectives. And I constantly, like, we have a bookshelf of books that are against what I believe, just so I can open up my brain and see what other people think. Because what do I know? I'm just another human surviving this experience. And what if something from one of those perspectives gives me the impetus to create an opus or to help someone in need? Then I'm a winner.
Right.
That was RuPaul. I just pulled the RuPaul. You're a winner, baby.
Well, that was amazing. Thank you so much, and thank you for.
Yeah, you don't want to know anything else?
I mean, is there anything else you would like to share with me?
Delicious.
Thank you.
It's very plump. Your
Thank
nails
you.
are very nice.
Thank
My wife fluffed up my hair today, and
you.
but we did not turn on the AC, so I am sweating profusely. Uh, is there anything else I like to say? I don't know, not really. I think that this show's important. I think that people who watch it will take away not just an entertaining experience, but they'll take away information.
Right.
They'll take away information about our history. Thank you, babe. She just turned on the AC. Best wife ever. She wasn't even downstairs. But yeah, I think we can take away. Thank you, baby. Jesus, I'm a mess. You can take away that I'm a hot mess.
It's all good.
Yeah, I think we said it all right. We talked about race, we talked about representation, we talked about HBO putting on hits. And you know what? It's good that HBO is taking this on. Because remember
Right.
back in the day, I don't know if I can say this. There were shows that HBO were considering back in the day that were offensive to me,
Mm,
that were straight up offensive to me. And the higher ups realized that some of the things they were considering were excluding pain. And it's nice to see in their current lineup the inclusion of people that have gone unsung on their network specifically.
yeah.
And I think they're doing good stuff, and I'm glad to be a part of it. That's true. I'm glad to be working with anybody who is telling truth.
Right.
Ava, Tim Van Patten, my wife. It's dope. You
Thank you.
look at us. Look at us. Look at what we get to do.
Yeah, yeah. It's important. I think telling, our stories is valuable. So,
Exactly.
and
And
I'm
you
so thankful
contribute
you're helping
as
me.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, thank you
All right.
so much for helping me. Have a great Monday. Enjoy your time with your wife and an air conditioning.
Monday. Yes. Yes. You enjoy your Monday and your week and be safe.
Thank you so much. Bye.
All right.